To the Commonsensical Kurt Show. Today we have two topics that have nothing to do with each other, but we're going to roll it anyway. So we're going to start with The Little Mermaid, the new trailer from Disney, because, you know, I have seen the controversy around it, but I have not even remotely uh, looked this up, cared enough to look it up, but I've seen some people say some really bad takes about it. So we're gonna roll into that one and see how it goes. Because, like I said, I haven't seen this yet. Sorry, I gotta bring up my little second screen here. All right. So let's check this thing out and see how good or bad it is. I haven't seen it yet. All right. So, this is the trailer straight from Walt Disney Studios, so let's check this out. Ocean. So, first thing, right off the bat, this is like really dark. like visually, it's really dark, which is like I'll bet you there's a lot of work that the animators put into animating all of that in CG, and then somebody just decided to like set it too far under the sea and ruined it. That is bad. Like it doesn't look bad. It's just dark, and I don't know. This feels like one of those instances where the Disney remakes I've noticed kind of had this issue where like they shoot for like photorealism and a story that is like just on the details, like absurd. Like Beauty and the Beast, they were going for like photorealism in the Beauty and the Beast, like all the plates and all the dishes that dance, and then the Beast himself. They were like trying to like make them look like real creatures, and why? It doesn't need to have like a sense of realism. It doesn't need to be put through a blue filter. I feel like they're running down. It's like the Lion King too. The Lion King, like that was the thing that everybody thought was really weird. Was like, in the animated version of it, you can really see the emotions and the actions come through in the way they animated the lions' faces and the unnatural movements that they could make and the things that they could do, like pick stuff up with their paws and stuff like that. So you could really sell the story through the animation. But in the Lion King remake, they were just animals that their mouth could move a little bit, and it was like I'm not saying the movie was bad, but it was like slightly off-putting to a lot of people that they went for this like photorealism in a story that just does not need that photorealism. And there's lots of movies that can blend like live action and having real actors on set, but still look patently absurd and have it work. That was one of the things that Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar, did really well. Was like that whole moon that they were on, Pandora, looks ridiculous. And I don't mean ridiculously good, although it did look really good. I mean ridiculous. Like, it's not a believable environment. And they had live action people running around in it, and it worked because the art direction had a clear vision and was consistent, and they weren't going for photorealism. But these Disney live action movies, they're shooting for like a realistic look, and I don't think the movies need it. It's part of the reason I've like only seen clips from most of them, and haven't went out and gone to actually see them is because like I'm just not interested in live action adaptations of stories that are patently absurd on purpose. Like these stories are absurd for a reason, and their art direction and the way they're drawn in the original versions is absurd, and it's that way for a reason to sell the story. And I feel like you lose something when you when you pull that absurdity out of the look of the movie. Anyway, it's my main criticism with these new Disney movies. And then the music is in them, but regardless. Moving on. Wait for it. And
Out of the sea. Wish I
Money Shot. Right there. Okay, that's the one that's got everybody upset. And let's finish it before we talk.
part of that
Okay, so first thing, she sounds great. There's no criticism that can be levied at the way this girl sings. That's realistic. Emma Watson did her best in Beauty and the Beast, but she's clearly not a trained singer. This girl, just from that snippet, she knows what she's doing. So no criticisms there. So the issue that I've been hearing is that there was no reason for Disney to make Ariel black outside of just them being woke. Now, two things that I've read about this is that the directors wanted her from the beginning. So, all the people who are complaining, mostly conservatives, like to talk about, living in a meritocracy. You get a part, you get a job, a contract, a work. Hi. Say hi. Hi. That's the fiance. Anyway, you get a contract, you get your job, you get your position based off of the merits of your work. So, in the case of this movie, it seems like she got the job based off of the merits of her work. The directors, like, according to what I've read, wanted her right off rip. She's not like fourth or fifth in line, or like Disney executives were like, actually, you're going to have to put a black person in there for woke reasons or whatever. She was the first choice. So, I mean, that right there should tell everybody to just back off the woke train. Like clearly, if she was choice number one, she got the part based on her merits. It's not like the movie the director of the movie wants to choose the worst of the two actresses just because she's black. Like she wouldn't be his first choice then. So anyway, the and the other one is let's say, for example, that she was like that they had 3 other actresses lined up to do this part. All of them were better than her. All of them were white. And then Disney passes down judgment and says, nope, we want the black girl for woke reasons, right? Yes, that's a cynical move. And yes, it's super annoying that Disney that in that case Disney would have made that decision. In that hypothetical, Disney would have made that decision. But at the same time, this is a fictional story. Like, it's a heavily bastardized version of, I think, a Nordic mermaid story. If I remember right, the original version of the Little Mermaid story comes from Norway, but like it shares basically nothing in common with nothing in common with the original story. It's just essentially made up. Like it's as far from the source material, I guess, as like the Disney version of Hercules is. Like anybody who knows anything about Greek mythology knows that Zeus was not a family man. So essentially, it's a work of fiction. The original work was a work of fiction, but it has some historical context. But they're so far from the historical context of the original work that it's essentially fiction. So if it's fiction, who gives a fuck what colors the person is that plays her? Who cares? Nobody gave two shits about there being black people in Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones is clearly based, like the aesthetic of Game of Thrones is clearly Northern Europe. But there's black people in that. Nobody gives a shit because it's fictional. The only reason people care is because there's a previous version of this movie where the animated character was a white girl with flaming red hair, and now she's black. But again, who cares? It's a fictional story. And just to be clear, like running down the hypothetical that Disney cast a black girl to play Ariel as a cynical woke move to try to win points from the left. Let's run that hypothetical down the train. May or may not be true. I don't know enough about like the behind the scenes decision making process for this movie. Nobody's going to know that with any clear details because it's all happens behind closed doors. But let's assume for a second that it is a cynical move from Disney. The only reason that they would make that cynical move is because they think that it makes good business sense to cast a black girl in a role that was originally a white girl. Not they're doing it to like try to improve the world, not they're doing it because they have some like ethical or moral conviction about it, but just because they think it's good business. Well, in order for it to be good business, there has to be attention drawn to it. Otherwise, it wouldn't make a difference. Because if they cast a black actress and nobody gives a shit, then the act of casting the black actress was irrelevant, and they're not going to make a decision like that cynically if it's irrelevant. So it's the people who get butthurt, like in this hypothetical, which I'm not even sure this is what happened. From what I've read, it's not what happened. From what I have read, she got the part fair and square. But let's assume for a second that it was a cynical move by Disney. Then the people who get angry about it are the people who are making it a thing. And then they have a reactionary reaction to it. And then because their reactionary reaction to it is a negative, borderline, potentially racist reaction, probably racist reaction if we're being honest, then the people who are anti-racist, the left, are going to then defend the decision. Like it's the initial negative reaction to it that makes it a thing. And then the left defends it, and then by extension they have to defend Disney. Stop worrying about it. If you think it's a cynical move by Disney, then let it be a cynical move and shut up and it'll go away. Like the fact that people are getting upset about it would reinforce the decision on Disney's part that this was a good move, because it's going to get people talking about the movie. It's going to get the people who are anti-racist to support Disney on its face and ignore all the other crappy stuff that Disney does. The way they try to monopolize the entertainment industry, the way that they don't like to pay their employees particularly well, the way that a lot of their merchandising is made in sweatshops in other countries. Like all of this stuff are legit criticisms of Disney. Them casting Ariel as a black actress is not a legitimate criticism. Because even if it is cynical, if you just shut up about it, they'll stop making decisions like that. Plus, it's a perfect test. If you think that it was a cynical decision, if the whole country could agree to just not give a fuck and just let the movie be the movie that it is, then that would be a perfect test of whether or not this was a cynical decision. Because if we all know Disney's history with racism, they have a fairly racist history, and I'm pretty sure there's some people there that are still leaning on that side of the aisle. So if it becomes a business decision that doesn't make any sense, and they decide that they don't have to make that business decision anymore, well, congratulations. All of a sudden, all of the black representation that you think is being forced into a movie, even though this girl clearly got it on her own, will just go away because it won't make any business sense anymore. And then we can get back to talking about the actual criticisms of the movie, like why is it so fucking dark? But, you know, casting Ariel as a black actress is like, okay, I don't care. All the people on the left that are loud and proud about the fact that they cast a black actress, right? They would still be happy that they're getting some representation in a live action Disney princess, but they would not be standing on the rooftop shouting it to the world if you weren't standing on your rooftop shouting your opposition to it to the world and sounding like a racist. It would just be a nice thing. The movie could be fun. People would go see it. I've seen videos of young black girls who are like really excited that Ariel is a black girl. And like all that stuff is great. That stuff is good. And there's no negative to her being cast as a black actress outside of some, let's face it, white people getting butthurt about it. Stop getting butthurt about it. If it's a cynical decision, they'll stop making those decisions. Now, I happen to think it's not a cynical decision. Maybe on some level it could be, but I think the primary reason that she got the part was because the directors liked her. In which case, meritocracy, she wins. Get over it. What are we upset about? You know, the same thing happened with The Last of Us Part 2 to a different extent. Most people were upset. Spoiler alert. Most people were upset that that they killed Joel in the beginning of the game. But there were a lot of other people who were upset because they put a trans character in it as a plot point, and they thought that there was no reason to put the trans character in the game, yeah, okay, I guess technically, but there's no reason to do a lot of stuff in stories. Like, there was no reason for the Whomping Willow in Harry Potter to be a willow tree. It could have been a Whomping Oak tree. The willow part, just like, there was no reason, story beat-wise, for that to be the case. All The Last of Us Part 2 needed was a reason for this particular character to be ostracized from their religious cult. And let's be real, being trans is a pretty good way to get ostracized from a religious cult in America, especially post-apocalyptic America. So, like, let's not pretend that, that these decisions are made entirely just to, like, pander to the left or to, like, push a political agenda. Like, this decision here doesn't change the story. Why do we care? Same thing with The Last of Us Part 2. Yes, Lev was trans, but the decision to make Lev trans doesn't change the trajectory of the story any. It's just a driving point. They could have come up with another reason and had Lev not be trans for him to get kicked out of the religious cult, but they went with trans because it makes fucking sense. And they went with a black Ariel because it makes fucking sense in the context of the movie. She was the best actress for the part. They wanted her to do it, and it doesn't change the story, and it doesn't change the implications of anything to do with the story to have her be black, because it's fucking fiction. So stop worrying about it. If you stop worrying about it, there won't be this conversation, and we'll get to see which one of us is correct.